evening. It's your boy, PEUC here again with another news update. Today we're going to be covering the fallout of what happened yesterday. Before we get started, if you want to, follow me for stock trading or political entry, this is the channel for you. PEUC, that's me. If you look down in the description, you'll see a Robinhood link, so you can join Robinhood and start trading stocks. Also, down in the description, you'll see a link to the My Econ site, where you will see my course on learning how to finance your lifestyles and basically make money while doing nothing. Passive income. Alright, let's get into the content. Alright, our first one is... The first one's going to be a video I'm going to play for you, and so you can see the pictures that happened at the White House. And we can play. Alright, there we go. Alright, I think they got some. There we go. Alright. You see them busting out windows. This is when, near the end of the daylight hours, they started dropping tear gas. Some grandma out here. The outnumbered police officers. Them just standing all over the Capitol building. People just getting pepper sprayed. These faux patriots, domestic terrorists, just hanging out, chilling. These are the new staff sheltering in place. The fake narrative that the election got stolen. Offices. Right, it's finally showing up. How ironic is that? Alright, and that was the video. Let's get into the article. Here's another picture of them just sitting around after curfew, just walking around. But the BLM protest, they couldn't do that. Alright. The main part of this one, let me get back so you can read it. FBI, Homeland Security, and White House advisors foresaw possible riots, and they looked the other way. So, they knew it could happen. They feared Donald Trump would pull a Samson, bringing down the whole house on top of him in the 2 weeks before he left the White House. Officials from the FBI, Secret Service, Homeland Security, District of Columbia government, the Pentagon, the National Guard, and the Joint Task Force National Capital Region spoke to Newsweek last weekend on the condition of anonymity. All talk about the potential for protesters and militias and paramilitary goons, egged on by the president, to storm Capitol Hill and even the Capitol building itself. And it did. A half a dozen sources spoke openly about this very scenario, that the mob would take over the people's house, and then somehow the system would break down. They speculated this could occur because of the president's treasonous behavior, because the leadership deficiencies in the federal government and Congress, because of the extreme partisanship of the moment, and because everyone was looking the wrong way. You're right, they were. The blame was spread around, with the FBI dismissing the Department of Homeland Security as a bunch of amateurs and thugs, the military shaking their head about President Trump and an absent White House leadership, Homeland Security members mocking the District of Columbia mayor, Attorney General, and police, and making clear that the problem was somebody else's. So basically, they were just passing the buck, so they didn't have to do nothing. They didn't want the paperwork or the headache. And then a coup attempt happens, and now everyone's scattering. It was clear that the very law enforcement and security people who were, in theory, responsible for maintaining order in our capital city wasn't ready, weren't led well, weren't organized properly, and weren't impartial. How did we even get here? That's a good question. The patchwork of guilt, of roles and responsibility created post 9/11, the immense public illiteracy regarding all things national security have weakened America. Yep. Completely agree. Many people in Washington have tolerated and even humored President Trump's sedition and incitement to riot. They have. Lindsey Graham, Matt Gaetz, bunch of the ones from Texas, Kelly Loeffler from Georgia and Purdue, they were ready to protest the certification for Biden before, they got ran out of the people's house. And then once they got back in, they completely changed their tune. And they're like, yeah, Biden's the right person. We sorry. We won't do it again. But both of them are officially voted out, and Georgia is now blue. So, good news. All right. FBI sources said that the White House wasn't ordering any new security measures, wasn't ordering any additional resources, and wasn't coordinating any extension of the inaugural National Security Special Event timeline that included this week. It officially covers January 15th to 21st, and wasn't doing these things, the sources said, because the president aides were afraid that any movement might provoke Donald Trump to do something even worse than what he was already planning. How much worse can it get, people? Like, what they're just afraid and just kowtowing to this man. Several sources said that the U.S. Capitol Police, with a strength of more than 2,000 law enforcement officers, might not act or be intentionally stood down because of many congressional Republican leaders wanted the mobs to amplify their shrinking voices that the election was illegitimate. There's been no confirmation of this claim, but it's notable that it took less than 15 minutes for the mob to gain entry to the Capitol building, and virtually nothing was done to eject them. I'm going to have an article after this one that will show you the lack of security and the lack of give a fuck that the Capitol Police were doing. Sources from other departments said that Department of Homeland Security, which has declined to use its mammoth army of law enforcement officers to suppress the protests in Portland and other cities, obstinately because they were needed in D.C. but to protect government buildings, made itself virtually absent from the scene of the transition. So you were pulling punches and doing everything else while the Portland stuff was going on. You just want to stay in D.C. I said that no, we have to protect these main buildings. And then when something actually happened in your backyard, nothing was done. So, the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, is actually in the Middle East, evidently not thinking that the threat was severe enough for him to be in Washington. Fair enough. The DHS, Department of Homeland Security, has been indiscriminate in using its law enforcement arms. Now the largest in the federal government, the Secret Service, ICE, Customs and Border Protection, Homeland Security Investigations, federal air marshals, and even the Federal Protective Service to intervene in the past years when the protests didn't involve pro-Trump right-wing mobs. The Capitol Police come out in force when Black Lives Matter and Antifa approached Capitol Hill last summer. They did. They were on the Capitol Hill steps in full riot gear, looking like the doom invasion was about to happen. FBI sources told Newsweek that the Bureau is closely watching various protesters converging on the city, and the Department of Justice is taking law enforcement lead no matter what other agencies in the government are doing. And the Bureau has some sense of the protesters, the size of the crowd, the leaders, and the dangers. The intelligence apparently did not anticipate what the news media was openly spectating and what the president and his supporters were publicly tweeting about. For those of you who are sadomasochists like myself and go onto Parler and 8chan and all of these other deep right-wing sites, they've been unabashed about their plan. And apparently some of the people in the government knew about it and just didn't think it was important enough to do anything about. The District of Columbia was the only one prepared with a ready force on Wednesday. Mayor Muriel Bowser activated 340 District National Guardsmen and women before Wednesday. And to keep the desire not to use soldiers to enforce the law, she kept them unarmed and assigned to traffic control and other duties to relieve more police officers of the Metropolitan Police Department, up 3,800 strong, the sixth largest municipal police in the nation, to enforce the laws. Makes sense, police are supposed to enforce laws, not soldiers. Good job. The riots and the D.C. response underscored the argument for making D.C. a state, which is the mayor wouldn't have to ask permission from the Secretary of the Army to activate the D.C. Guard. So D.C. needs to be made a state, so does Puerto Rico. We would have 52 states. Redo the flag. Meh. And finally, the Pentagon. Donald Trump's walked to Lafayette Park last June, accompanied by a gaggle of federal, National Guard, and local police forces jolted the U.S. military. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Midley, in uniform, joins the president's entourage, giving him the impression that the uniformed military supported Trump and the forces surrounding him. General Milley was pummeled for his loss of situational awareness for even being there. He then had to publicly apologize. The Lafayette incident and Midley's apology shifted the Pentagon's culture. Ranking officers firmly reject talk of martial law and openly declared that U.S. Armed Forces had no role in playing in the election of the transition. Now the Pentagon is being dragged somehow in the form of the National Guard, the last nonpartisan, honorable, duty-bound institution in Washington. But political structure has failed spectacularly. Creating and living with federal government so faulty gives the impression that the military is the only institution that can be trusted. That is the only way, the only one that can and will always save the day. The congressional leadership cheered when they heard the National Guard was on the way to the Capitol. That is some dystopian level stuff. To restore the rule of law and ensure accountability for protecting America's democracy, the post-Trump reforms must be dramatic as the one that follows 9/11. The military is the only answer. It's not a false belief. It also weakens the civil institutions that our nation depends on. Might does not make right. If we can't negotiate and talk things out, and we just have to pull out guns and beat each other over the head until one person submits, that's not how democracy works. That is a just way to get everything bad, worse, and people start dying. And that's it. Like, Trump done fucked up, and those loyal to him in these levels of in these different positions wasn't taking the situation seriously because they didn't take Trump seriously. And as us laymen and people on the ground know, the people that follow Trump hang on his every word and take him dramatically seriously. So if we knew that they were serious, it boggles my mind that they can say, we wasn't really worried about it. Like, it wasn't really a big thing. It wasn't on our radar. And then act surprised when you didn't do any of the preparation, or when you didn't do any of the preparation to not make Trump mad because you were scared he was going to do something even worse than what he was planning. He more or less scheduled a coup against his own government, his own people. How much worse can it get? Y'all Republicans need to stop kowtowing to this man before something else happens. The more you bend to him, the more he's going to make you bend. That's all I got. Again, I'm PCRO. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Wash your hands, wear a mask, be easy, and I love you. Peace out.